Hello, and welcome back. There's a powerful, undeniable force at work within you right now, a spiritual current that you might have always felt but could never quite put into words. This feeling often shows up as those secret struggles, those intense emotional spikes, or those habits you desperately wish you could shake off. What if the very things you've been labeling as personal failures or weaknesses are actually the master tools, divinely placed inside you by the Creator, to specifically mold you for a unique spiritual assignment? I know that sounds radical, but stick with me. By the end of this message, the way you view your own life, your battles, and your identity will be utterly transformed. You've likely spent your entire life feeling like an outsider. You try to conform, you try to fit the mold of the people around you, but there's always a fundamental, deep-seated sense that you're simply built differently. The quick emotional responses you have, the sudden flashes of intuition, the inner turmoil that feels too big for your chest, these are the things the world looks at and diagnoses as being too much or emotionally unstable. They see the mess, the intensity, the disruption. But understand this, when heaven looks at these same characteristics, it doesn't see chaos. It sees the raw material for construction. Patterns of behavior you carry, the ones that are so baffling to your friends and family, are misunderstood because they were never designed to be interpreted by an ordinary perspective. The world uses labels like flaws, imbalance, or even character defects. But the divine perspective calls them preparation. This is the simple, life-altering truth. The very inner conflicts you have been fighting to eliminate your entire life might be the precise spiritual instruments God has intentionally set within you to guarantee the success of your mission. We're going to dive deep into understanding why your spiritual journey has been uniquely challenging. We will uncover the reasons certain powerful inner pulls, specific habits, and those extreme emotional states are allowed only in the souls that have been handpicked for a higher spiritual purpose. You will finally gain clarity on why your internal operating system seems to be running on a different frequency, why certain negative tendencies seem to cling to you, and why certain habits are so incredibly stubborn to resist. These strange addictions have a hidden divine architecture, and once you recognize it, every painful experience, every hidden struggle you've endured, will suddenly snap into perfect spiritual alignment. If you're hearing this message right now, if it resonates with an unexplained deepness in your spirit, it is not a coincidence. It means that the timing is intentional. Heaven has decided that it's time for your full awakening to the truth of who you are. Before we continue to unpack these hidden divine tools, please do me a quick favor. Give this a like to ensure it reaches another chosen soul who is desperate for this revelation. And if you're not already a part of this community, please subscribe now. This journey of understanding yourself is just commencing. Also, take a moment and comment 99 below. In the language of the Spirit, this number signifies the call before the completion. The moment God sends a final alert to His chosen ones that they are one single step away from their total revelation. The very first addiction God permits only in His chosen ones is that strange, almost magnetic pull toward isolation. It's an undeniable force that compels you to retreat from the noise, the crowds, and the constant input of the world. Even if a human part of you wishes you could just be normal and enjoy the social scene. People in your life misinterpret this. They assume you're being standoffish, cold, or completely disinterested in them, but your soul understands the deeper reality. You are not simply avoiding the world, you are being powerfully summoned inward. Understand that this isolation is not an accident. Heaven often steps in, intentionally closing specific social doors, quieting certain insistent voices, and even removing contaminated energies, all with the single purpose of creating the profound spiritual quiet necessary for you to hear what the masses cannot. This tendency to disappear, to turn down invitations, to become instantly drained and uninterested in a crowded environment is not a social weakness. It is, in fact, spiritual training. When God initiates a season of separation in your life, He is never punishing you. He is strictly preparing you. Preparation for a powerful destiny demands a level of spiritual silence and detoxification that the average person will never experience or understand. In that sacred stillness, God actively begins to recalibrate your perception, sharpen your most crucial asset, your intuition, and detox your spirit from the toxic vibrations that directly compromise your calling. This time alone is where He methodically restores the parts of you that the world's harshness attempted to shatter. He cleanses you of borrowed expectations that were never meant to be a part of your journey, stripping away all the external noise until the only voice you can clearly distinguish is His own. Chosen ones are not intrinsically antisocial. They are spiritually summoned into an internal, fortified chamber where divine instruction and strategic counsel flow like a soft, constant whisper that no one else can possibly detect. This is precisely why your isolation feels fundamentally different from the bitterness of loneliness. It doesn't drain your energy, it powerfully recharges it. It doesn't make you feel small or insignificant. It brings you back to your true, divinely implanted size. While the world is gripped by the fear of being alone, a deep, knowing part of you actively craves it. You instinctively know, on a profound level, that solitude is the spiritual laboratory where heaven implements crucial updates to your spirit. But here is the aspect of this isolation that surprises almost everyone. The moment you commit to this withdrawal, your spiritual senses dramatically intensify. You begin to observe minute details you completely overlooked before. You can feel subtle shifts in the emotional atmosphere of a place. You begin to discern people's true intentions with an alarming accuracy, long before they even open their mouths. Isolation functions as the spiritual furnace where your internal antennas are fully activated. And just when the world incorrectly assumes you've disappeared and become irrelevant, that is precisely when God initiates the construction of the next, most formidable version of you. This new version of you is stronger, clearer in purpose, infinitely wiser, and untouchable by the spiritual darkness that relentlessly attempted to consume your previous self. If you've noticed this pull towards solitude and silence growing significantly stronger in your life lately, it is a definitive sign that something monumental is being prepared for you behind the scenes, something you are intended to step into very soon. You are not withdrawing from life, you are being strategically repositioned. The most profound mystery of this process is that the deep silence you are currently entering is the direct doorway to a powerful revelation that the forces of the enemy desperately hoped you would never receive. Hold on to this thought, because the next addiction we explore will explain why this incredible spiritual acceleration is happening right now. The second powerful addiction that God allows to manifest only in His chosen vessels is the uncontrollable, extreme tendency to feel everything. Every single experience and emotion hits you with an intensity that seems to shake you from your core. You love with an exhausting depth. Your moments of sadness feel like you're dissolving. You possess the uncanny ability to sense danger and warning signs far quicker than any rational logic can explain. Every emotion that courses through you feels like a spiritual earthquake, sudden, completely overwhelming, and utterly impossible to suppress. While society hastily labels this as a debilitating oversensitivity, heaven interprets it as something entirely different and sacred. This intensity is not a sign of fragility, and it is definitely not an overreaction to life. It is your divine antenna, meticulously wired to pick up spiritual frequencies that the average, unawakened soul is simply unable to detect. You were explicitly built to perceive what others are blind to, concealed motivations, subtle spiritual shifts, brewing emotional storms, and the silent, desperate cries for help from those who cannot articulate their pain. Because your spiritual being is constantly tuned to this higher frequency, everything reaches you first, and critically, everything reaches you louder. There are days when this intense capacity feels like an immense blessing, but there are countless other moments when it feels like an absolute torment. One moment, you are flooded with an overwhelming, almost crippling compassion, and the next, you are struck with a devastating heaviness that leaves you breathless, as if you are involuntarily carrying someone else's spiritual storm inside your own soul. And here is a piece of crucial, untold information. A great many of the intense emotions you feel are not actually your own. Chosen ones are powerful spiritual absorbers of atmospheres and energy. You can walk into a room and instantly feel the tension before a single word of conversation is spoken. You possess the ability to instantly sense when a person is being dishonest, even when their words are perfectly sweet and convincing. You are able to detect spiritual danger and an impending attack long before it ever physically manifests. This profound emotional intensity is not merely a trait. It is a divine shield, an internal warning system, a sophisticated, supernatural radar explicitly created to keep you one critical step ahead of what is coming. This is the reason you find it impossible to ignore certain gut feelings and deep emotions. Even when everyone around you confidently assures you that you are just imagining things, you are not. You are accurately perceiving reality that they cannot see, hear, or feel. Because you possess this unique, heightened ability, you often find yourself quietly carrying heavy burdens that no one else realizes you are holding. You intensely feel the devastating weight of brokenness. You instantly sense when a person is silently suffering in their own space. You notice the tiny, subtle relational shifts that others completely overlook. It is undeniably exhausting, but it is also profoundly sacred work. Your heart was meticulously constructed to be able to stretch deeper and handle more capacity, because the enormous scale of your purpose demands a greater emotional and spiritual strength than the average person can manage. This apparent emotional overintensity will ultimately become your greatest weapon. It functions to relentlessly sharpen your intuition, dramatically heighten your discernment, and powerfully transform you into the kind of spiritual warrior who can detect a coming threat before it even arrives, and who can offer genuine, restorative comfort to someone long before they reach their final breaking point. Yet I know there are nights when you quietly ask the universe, why does everything impact me so hard? Why can't I just feel normal for once? The truth, my friend, is that normal is far too small for the magnitude of your calling. Your intense emotionality is a primary tool God employs to expertly guide you, to clearly warn you, and to perfectly align you with the people, places, and opportunities that are absolutely essential for your destiny. It hurts, yes, deeply, but it also fiercely protects. And the most surprising part of this is that the current emotional storm you are enduring may not be a heavy burden at all. It might be a clear divine signal that something significant is rapidly shifting in your spiritual vicinity, something that absolutely requires your spirit to be wide awake and completely alert. Keep your mind open, because the next addiction will expose why your soul is constantly pulled into battles you never volunteered for, but were ultimately chosen to win. The third unexpected addiction that God allows only in His chosen vessels is the relentless, compelling urge to help people, even those who have clearly demonstrated they would never lift a finger to help you in return. The vital truth here is that you don't engage in this work because they are inherently deserving of your effort. You do it because there is a powerful, unquenchable fire inside your spirit that absolutely refuses to look away from brokenness, pain, and damage. You will emotionally bleed for people who would abandon you without a second thought. You will extend yourself to rescue individuals who would stand by and watch you drown without hesitation. You relentlessly pour your valuable time, energy, and love into hearts that have never developed the capacity to healthily receive or hold it. This pattern of profound generosity and self-sacrifice completely baffles everyone around you, yet that confusion does not reach the ears of heaven. This is by divine design. God specifically wired you to function as a bridge, not a wall. You are the type of person who is meant to carry others across terrifying emotional or spiritual gaps that they are entirely incapable of crossing on their own. Your heart possesses the rare spiritual vision to see past fleeting human behavior. It sees only the untapped soul, It sees the immense potential tragically buried beneath layers of pain. It sees the original divine spark hidden beneath a person's most devastating failures. And yes, it is an incredibly painful path. It hurts deeply to continuously give what you so rarely receive back in kind. It hurts to consistently show up and invest in people who mysteriously vanish the very moment you genuinely need their support. It hurts to carry the immense emotional weights that were never, in the first place, meant for your shoulders. But this is not spiritual naivete or foolishness. It is a divine assignment. It is undeniable evidence that God implicitly trusts you to step into places where human compassion has entirely died out, and to be the agent who actively recreates what humanity has tragically forgotten. You operate as a healer operating in disguise, a dedicated protector who walks through life undetected, a restorer who carries a silent, powerful authority. Heaven deliberately sends you into broken homes, shattered relational rooms, and deeply wounded hearts because you are the carrier of what others cannot naturally produce: spiritual endurance and a pure, relentless love that simply refuses to quit. But because you possess the ability to love so deeply, you also experience the capacity to break deeply. It is in those moments of severe exhaustion, when you feel spiritually drained, emotionally wounded, and completely unable to comprehend why you care so much, that many chosen ones begin to violently question their own sanity and purpose. If you have ever experienced that crushing feeling, please stop and listen to these words now. The hunger and drive to uplift others, even when those others would never return the favor, is more than a personality trait. It is your sacred calling. You were never sent to simply mirror the world's pervasive coldness, indifference, or selfishness. You were sent to interrupt it. And here is the divine paradox that profoundly shocks most chosen individuals. The very people you pour into will not always be the ones who reward you or even thank you for your sacrifice. But heaven always, absolutely always, repays what the human eye overlooks. Every single seed of kindness you quietly planted will become a public harvest that God delivers directly into your life. Every weight of pain you temporarily carried for someone else's sake becomes a powerful, immediate breakthrough released into your own journey. Every tear you shed while preparing someone else's soul becomes the spiritual water that grows your next season of abundance. And yet the most fascinating part remains. The very people you are tirelessly helping right now may be teaching you a crucial spiritual lesson that you do not yet fully grasp. Something significant is actively forming in the background of your life, something intimately connected to your highest purpose, something that will finally make every emotional, spiritual, and physical sacrifice perfectly worthwhile. Stick with this truth, because the next addiction will illuminate why your spirit is constantly thrown into fierce battles that were never meant to be your personal responsibility, and why heaven continues to entrust you with the victory. The fourth unavoidable addiction that God permits in His chosen ones is the impossible, who ignore craving for absolute truth. This craving is so powerful that it often feels like it's spiritually breaking you down before it grants you the freedom you seek. You simply cannot swallow lies. You are incapable of pretending that everything is perfectly fine when every spiritual alarm bell inside you is screaming a clear warning. You have zero tolerance for manipulation, distortion, or the smooth, comforting half-truths that are designed to keep people in a state of spiritual complacency. While the world often mistakes your incessant need for clarity as pure rebellion or a negative attitude, heaven sees something entirely different and necessary: supreme discernment. This is not a character flaw. It is a fundamental spiritual instinct that refuses to allow you to settle down and live in the superficial land of illusions. You were never created to thrive on the surface level, where everyone else is comfortable and unquestioning. You were specifically created to see beneath, to look beyond, and to search behind the veil of accepted reality. While others readily accept pre-packaged explanations without a second thought, you are constantly dissecting the pieces that do not logically add up. While others place their blind trust in outward appearances and comforting narratives, you instantly sense the hidden agenda. While others desperately cling to comfortable lies, you possess the spiritual backbone to stand face to face with the uncomfortable truth, even when it entirely shakes the very foundations of your life. This overwhelming addiction to truth is not a choice you made. It is a spiritual necessity, a matter of survival. Chosen ones simply cannot operate, function, or thrive out of spiritual alignment. Falsehood instantly drains your spiritual battery. Pretending to be someone you are not, or to believe something you know is untrue, is an act that suffocates your soul. Even those socially accepted white lies leave a profoundly bitter and recognizable taste in your spiritual discernment. And here is what makes your personal journey exponentially more intense. God often whispers the real story and the deeper reality to you long before the truth ever becomes visibly apparent to anyone else. This reality often arrives as a subtle shift in someone's vocal tone, a sudden, unexplainable heaviness that settles over an atmosphere, or a profound, strange uneasiness that hits you precisely when everyone else is happily celebrating. Your spirit picks up on these cues instantly. You sense danger long before the threat makes its physical entrance. You recognize betrayal before it even begins to fully unfold. You can detect spiritual contamination before anyone else can even smell the smoke. Because of this powerful, unfiltered access to reality, you often perceive the actual truth of a situation long before others are emotionally or spiritually ready to admit it to themselves. This used to be a source of immense frustration for you, being spiritually ahead of the curve, clearly seeing what others willfully refuse to see, and issuing warnings to people who are determined not to listen. But now you are learning that this incredible ability was never meant to help you fit in. It was meant to powerfully set you apart. This addiction to truth has been God's tool to forge you into a person who is impossible to manipulate, who absolutely cannot be controlled by external pressures, and who cannot be deceived by sweet-sounding words or spiritual counterfeit. It sharpens your innate wisdom. It strengthens your intuition to an incredible degree. It transforms you into a powerful warrior who walks with spiritual eyes wide open in a world that overwhelmingly prefers to remain blind. But there is an additional, deeper layer to this gift that most chosen ones only discover after they have been broken open by it. The often painful truth you uncover about others is ultimately nothing compared to the raw truth God reveals about your own inner patterns. This addiction forces you to fiercely confront your own self-sabotaging patterns, your deepest wounds, your hidden shadows, and the true magnitude of your spiritual calling. It systematically strips you of all convenient excuses. It forcefully pushes you out of denial. It relentlessly demands that you rise into the formidable version of yourself that God has been patiently waiting for. And even though this process can feel like it is burning you alive, it is simultaneously purifying your very soul. The lies you can no longer tolerate are not just external. They are profoundly internal as well. You cannot spiritually lie to yourself, even when doing so would make your life infinitely easier. You cannot continue to stay in places where you no longer belong, even when the environment feels comfortably familiar. You cannot successfully pretend to be someone smaller than the scale of your purpose, even when shrinking yourself would make everyone else around you more comfortable and less intimidated. And the most beautiful mystery of all, every single time your truth-seeking spirit senses something amiss, it is a clear sign that heaven is actively preparing you for a monumental revelation, one that will immediately alter your path and decisively shift your destiny. Stay focused, because the next addiction reveals why your soul refuses to rest until everything that has been hidden finally comes to light. The fifth intense addiction that God allows only in His chosen ones is the intense, relentless, and unyielding pressure you put on yourself. This is a pressure that no external person demands of you, yet you carry it as if the entire spiritual and physical world is closely scrutinizing your every action and decision. You demand exponentially more of yourself than anyone else would ever dare to. You push yourself to your absolute limits and beyond. You strive for excellence and completion even when your physical and emotional energy is completely depleted. You continue to improve, grow, and refine your skills even when there is no applause or public recognition. No one else in your life truly sees the silent, often debilitating battles you fight inside the confines of your own mind. They are unaware of the internal expectations you feel deeply obligated to meet. They don't see the invisible, crushing weight that rests squarely on your shoulders from the moment you wake up. And the reason this pressure is a constant companion and never seems to dissipate is profoundly simple. Your soul knows you were born with a mission. Even when you cannot clearly articulate what that is, even when you are flooded with doubt, and even when you feel profoundly unworthy, something ancient and deep inside you absolutely refuses to let you settle for less than your potential. You find that you simply cannot slow down because stagnation feels